Okay, we're finally live on Facebook and YouTube. Okay, welcome. I'm over here definitely definitely for the first time, getting going here with this podcast on YouTube. I think it's first time that we're kind of doing this on Facebook and YouTube simultaneously at the same time. So if you're out there, if you're able to hear, just you could put something in the chat there. Let me know if you're able to hear. So again, this is Frank Marte, Moral Politics, just kind of getting going here. Um, Out of Franken's studio. This has been going on at a labor of love and kind of ministry and everything. Trying to get going with this for a long, long time. Try years for this. Trying to kind of learn how to do this thing, not having the right time. But um, yeah. So one of the things that we're doing in moral politics, and I think this is actually the second episode. First one was only on Facebook. This one is on Facebook and YouTube, live streaming for the first time in both. And if you can actually put it in the chat, it would be greatly appreciated if you can hear me and let me know what it looks like. But one of the things with this thing in moral politics, right? One of the things I did put this up on the previous, why we call it Frankie Studio. And pretty much, right, what it is a mixture of different things, a mixture of different parts to get this studio together. Definitely various angles, various views. But the reason for this, is put together. A lot of people pay for one thing, one brand, and kind of get it to synchronize really well. This was a lot of work to be able to put this together. But one of the things with this podcast is definitely going to be talking about different social political issues. And in if you look at the tile, I like the way the tile looks on YouTube. It really looks good. But it just looks good. Or the yeah, it looks really nice. The way it was put together. But it's learning how to do that. Okay, my son is kind of giving me the update. He says that yes, it sounds good, which is really, really good. And so, this is almost like a one-man show, right? Doing everything from audio to video to lighting to producing, you name it. And so, within moral politics, right? This podcast, it's to really talk about social political issues. And if you look at what this is about, right? Is how tolerance, right? And I'm taking that off right there, right? Um, how tolerance is destroying the nation, right? And you're gonna be able to see when we're able to address this, right, and talk about this throughout this very beginning. I want to be able to set this up, right? And as we said here, how tolerance is ruining America, right? It hasn't fully destroyed it, but we're kind of on our way, right? And some of us that have seen how the nation is going, it's not good. It's definitely a little different. I don't like the way the subtitles there look. It kind of like subtitles kind of going over what I'm saying. They have to deactivate that. But one of the things that you got to look at, if you went to school in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you're beginning to see a difference. And so one of the things with this is really looking at how this nation has really been affected and what has done it from the very beginning. Was really the issue of tolerance, how we learn to tolerate things. And That is one of the things that a lot of people learn in schools and the workplace and so many things. And next to you know, while you're beginning and you're giving room, right? Uh, Intolerance, right? And you know, you are in a place that you start that once a nation and people learn to tolerate for so much, right? You then go from a nation of faith, and those of you that know the history of this nation, there was faith within this nation. People used to, um, you know, um, have a better, more beliefs in Judeo-Christian values, and Christian values in particular, right? They kind of integrate. Um, and over the years, you know, there's way less people that are going to church, way less people that have fear of God. Then things have changed. And then when you go from an area of faith, right, and we know that there have been issues with faith, right, people that are religious and things that are not good. Every faith has its issue. Um, but how it turns into an area of fate, right, where then the nation starts falling apart morally. And one of the things that you know that you got to look at first, how does the system get you? The system get you first to tolerate. And what is tolerance? Tolerance is really when you respect the difference of people you do not agree with. You know, there's certain things you don't agree with when you eat them, right? But you agree with it because you just take it in. You don't want to throw up in front of people, right? You don't want to um, disrespect people, and you sort of tolerate, even though you don't really fully agree. So tolerance builds a level of resistance and a level of respect. But what happens with that is when you start doing that, when you start tolerating things so much to the point that you start compromising on things you really believe in. And next thing you know, you became a person that then actually advocates for stuff you didn't agree with. So you went from tolerating to then actually um, being forced or actually participating in something you really weren't meant to participate in. And so, and you become a convert of an advocate cause, which you really did not sign up for. And so it goes from respecting, kind of being politically correct, to then getting to a place of actually changing who you are and changing your morals and compromising to the point that you actually then begin to advocate. I've been in a situation myself when I've advocated and I'm sitting, I'm like, oh, this goes against my beliefs. And I did it for years in the name of tolerance, right? And you tolerate certain things. Give you an example a lot of people are tolerating, right? You tolerate when you are in your workplace and you're on a Zoom call or whatever, and next thing you know, you have to put a gender pronoun right under he, she, her, what, and you put all of that, knowing that you kind of don't feel comfortable. You're thinking some of us have been like, "What is that?" But then you play along, and then next thing you know, you participate with it, and you are part of a movement that started intolerance that then turns on people that you that then actually then disrespects your beliefs, right? And so, you know, and in general, the left, right? The left, which is really more of the radical liberal side, has really changed even the meaning of tolerance. It hasn't even been you respecting and tolerating. It's been now that you must advocate and you must approve and you must propel forward agendas that maybe you're against. And that's how, kind of how it starts, you know. Next, you know, you go for it, you know, and you end up being in a place that you start to actually be a participant of something that you really didn't agree and sign up for initially, right? So, you know, that's the thing, you know, and it is a slippery slope when you're in a place that you really are afraid to even, you know, kind of say that you don't really agree with something. So you're put in a predicament, right? Like when in those Zoom calls or whatever, right? That you have to put a gender pronoun there. You know, like most people put it. I'm one of those that I don't put it. And I've seen people even in meetings where people go around in circles. Me and another person in a big meeting, we're the only ones that didn't do it. The other person was really bold, said, I don't use that. I don't go by gender. I go by Miss, Mrs. Boom. And I was like, whoa, that was bold, right? And I don't know if that person was a person of faith. Most likely she was very bold and done with wisdom. And I actually was like, wow, I wish I could do it like that, But that was being very, very bold. Um, and that's the thing. The thing is that, the left has changed it. It has changed it in such a radical way. And over time, what's happened is many of us have become too tolerant for too long, way too long, because we played along, right? And we've fallen for a bait, hook, and sinker. And next thing you know, you're actually pushing something that is actually changing the nation. It's changing the neighborhood. It's changing the classroom you're in. It's changing the nation, and it's actually even changing the world, right? Because the United States of America is exporting a lot of shenanigans, a lot of moral stuff that's kind of crazy. Just amazing, some of the stuff that we have. And that's why some nations really look at us like this. Of course, some nations are okay with it because they've been contaminated for so long and drank the Kool-Aid for so long. But you go to some nations that are extremely conservative. They don't like it. They don't like it, and a lot of it starts with our morals. That's why I felt to put this together. This moral politics, right? Because everything is moral and everything is political to a large extent. Some people say, "Oh, I don't get into politics." No, guess what? You are actually into politics. It says you don't kind of admit it. People don't want to admit it because when you take certain views, right, you're actually in it. You're in it, and it's a process to learn. And one of the things with this is sort of to make people aware. How you fall for things, and you got to be very, very mindful of this. So, what can we do? As I said, that other lady in the meeting, she was very bold. And one of the things you got to do is learn to counteract. You can't. You learn how to preempt the setup, and then you learn how to either walk away, not say anything, or say something. And it's better to say something. That what I've learned is sometimes when you're very cordial and you don't say anything, they keep pushing. The folks on the left just keep pushing. They just keep pushing. They ain't gonna quit. And so sort of you gotta let them know where you stand. And that takes being bold, and that takes some wisdom and counteracting, not being closed minded, not being disrespectful. But then guess what? You may have to be like, that way they understand, right? That you're not gonna fall for it. And the other part, right, is to also teach your family. Look, if you it's not about teaching people in the workplace or whatever. And the best thing to do is do it not in a big meeting, do it in one on one, and let people know where you stand. Um, but one of the biggest things is to train your family, train your children, train them so that nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, even if there may be some disagreement, right? You kind of have to do that because if you don't, and, you may lose some friends even within family. But if you don't, you just become a participant of that stuff, right? And I think a lot of us have really contributed to how things have gone down to this nation. There are things that over time, things that are done these days would have never been done in the 70s and 80s. It was crazy, when I was growing up. Even a little bit on the early 90s. It's really downhill since, right? Um, and so that's the thing. The thing is to be able to get to a place, right, that we can really have some wisdom and have our antennas up and listen up for these things and not just fall for it, right? And not just become a participant that then next thing you know, we're actually doing stuff, right? That is not, that goes contrary to our beliefs. Um, the other thing that I want to say, right, is, if you let it go for a long time, because this is really propaganda. This stuff is actually propaganda, and propaganda uh, with woke ideology. This is an ideology, like folks criticize some religions, right, and Christianity and things like that. However, however, um, and they almost put it as if religion is propaganda. But guess what? These woke ideologies, they are that religion is not propaganda, right? It's faith, right? That's first of all. But this a lot of this woke stuff is ideological. That actually, what does an ideology do? It changes the narrative, right? It changes people's perception of things, right? And it becomes dogmatic, right? That people have to live by. It's almost like a code, right? That people start living by. And so that's what happens over time. One of the things, in the way this nation has been ruined, and this is really, really important, has been ruined, is because a lot of us have shaped the narrative for that, right? A lot of us have fallen for that stuff. And let me just show you something here. Um, in the book of Matthew, I'm going to get a, oh, look at that. Didn't come out good. Oh boy, that kind of messed up there. Sorry about that. It doesn't look good. It kind of threw off my screen, but that's fine. 7:13. I'm just going to read it. Enter through the narrow gate, for the wide is the gate, right? Wide is the gate and narrow, right, the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. So nowadays, right, you have a situation where people are entering a very, very, very broad road. So whenever things become bigger in society, acceptable that the morals, everybody falls for it, you're actually opening a wider road, a wider gate that leads to destruction, right? And many enter through it, right? And this is talking about, that's Matthew chapter 7:13. This is talking about, in general salvation, but in general also the demise of a nation. And that's how things go, right? I like also the other verse. This is kind of malfunctioning a little bit. It also says, "But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to, right, life, and only a few find it." And the idea is you have to be at a place, right, that you actually are not afraid, right, you have to be bold, not afraid to say what's right? And not redefine morality. But guess what? So many folks already have had morality so redefined that they don't even know what is truth and what is not. And also in the next verse, 7:15, it says, "Watch out for false prophets. They come, right, in sheep's clothing, right? And and again, there are false prophets out there in the media, in politicians, and people in the school systems. Those are false prophets that people are falling for, right? And I think with my sons, one of the things with my sons, tough situations that they've been through in school. But the good thing was, one of the good things, at least with a couple of them, was that my wife and I were really able to they were able to trust us to really talk about some of the stuff, and we that they encountered in schools, right? And again, because we pushed it, one of my sons actually got kicked out of a radio station he was doing in college, right? Because they wanted in the college campus, they were passing around this, the pride uh, pins, and he was like, no, but of course they were going around, and he was like, no, 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 he didn't want to participate in it. But guess what? That actually led for them to have a meeting and kick him out, right? And I was actually proud of him. He got kicked out, and I was actually proud of him because you don't have to. See, that's a wide gate, right? But he chose the narrow road. That sometimes you gotta say no, right? If that's not your thing, you don't have to. You're not against, right? We know many people, friends, we have relatives that are of that lifestyle, and that's fine. But do you have to really participate in it like that? And so you don't really have to. You really don't have to. And you don't have to get anyone to push you to that point. Now, many years ago, you weren't really pushed to that level, but it's gotten to the place that, yes, people are being pushed. And people are, those of us that have a certain level of moral understanding and Judeo Christian beliefs, some people have been booted out of radio station, booted out of classrooms and stuff like that. But I think now, things are a bit tougher than they used to be. And partly because of the failure of so many people that didn't really do anything. And so it's it's uncomfortable during this time because of the failure of so many in the past. So many in the past failed, right, at doing this work, that I think those of us, either, it's just a tougher thing to do. But that's kind of expected during these times. We're a lot of us are living during such a time as this for a reason, right? We're here for a reason. And but one of the things, let me say this to you, that this is really, really important. And if you look at the thumbnail that came out on YouTube, because I'm on Facebook. A couple of people watching on Facebook, right? This is pretty new. This is only the second time I've gone live, and on Facebook. But the first time I went live on YouTube. And the thing is this, that what changes things over time? What makes things look normal and normalize, let's say, behavior, right? Or things that were not acceptable, right? Again, the left and people in radical liberal, right? What the liberals, because again, this is happening everywhere, the schools, the media, right? The politicians, all of this stuff, the workplace. And so what's happening is that it's being pushed so much that it's become almost normalized, right? And what happens is that things that were rejected over time, they become accepted then, right? One of the things I just, because this thing is malfunctioning, I didn't get to put it up the way I would have liked to. But one of the things that happens is that when you when something that is not acceptable is pushed for a long, long time, and you put enough false information, enough pressure, what happens is the window opens, right? As it said in the scripture says, wide is the gate. What happens is that there is a window that opens and then things become acceptable. I remember reading an article of how things become normal, right? How things that were not accepted become normal. And again, it's through pressure. It's through pressure. And a lot of folks just get pressured to accept certain things. And guess what? Look, I my wife had a boss, right? That was kind of going against my wife's beliefs, right? And my wife was not, talking about negatively about the people of the same sex, Um, but this supervisor, this boss that she had was saying, oh, she was kind of pushing that until one day, her own kid, right, um, started wanting to play with a toy that was more for like for for their gender. A boy wanted to play with, and boy, she started feeling a certain way, right? So see, and 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 at first it was kind of cool, right? Talking about it, but then when it hits home, you're like, oh, you get shaken up a little bit, and then that's when she was able to be like, whoa. So they had a conversation, like, yeah, yeah, now I see what you mean, because when it hits home, it's a different ball game, and a lot of us have been there. When things hit home, either a gender issue, orientation issue, a crime issue, right? Like an acceptable thing, like to accept to be fraudulent until somebody in your house gets locked up, you know, and then you be like, oh, it ain't, and you get up, you end up opening a gate that leads to destruction. You end up opening something that comes into your family, your bloodline, that you're like, whoa, and of course you could, as a parent, you could do the right things, right? You can, and one of them, but man, it feels terrible. Sometimes you have families that multiple people been incarcerated, because it's just become like normal to get in trouble. And so that's a window, that's a gate that gets open, right? Wide is the gate that leads to destruction. Things become acceptable in the neighborhood. Kids pick up on being, doing criminal activity, and that's what leads to destruction. That's what destroys neighborhoods, right? So sometimes people say, "Oh, gentrification, racism." It's like, all right, but let's say you buy a house, right, and you want to be in peace, right? But next thing you know, folks are down the line, uh, 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 you know, f- fighting or having shootouts. Of course, you're gonna move out. Of course, you're gonna move out, right? No one wants to be around that stuff, right? And so gentrification, which what's gentrification, is kind of taking out the very poor and bringing in the people that have money. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. It feels terrible. And we see that, okay, there's racism in it. But what happened over the years that folks, especially elected officials, right? People sat and just let it go. They just let it go for decades and decades and decades. And many of them were in office for years and years and years. And many of us just sat there and just tolerated it. We just tolerated the rhetoric that folks that are in office do. We just didn't make them accountable, right? And some of them are called reverends, right? Some of them are reverends that used to do great things many years ago in civil rights, but it become a hustle, and no difference, no difference. Just what is controversy, but not making a difference in the community, right? And so it just gets old after a while. So then folks like me, I used to criticize gentrification. Now I kind of welcome some of that stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm in a neighborhood. I don't like this stuff. So yes, let's make some new buildings here. But some people are gonna have to move out. You know, it's sad because you want to raise your kids in a good neighborhood. The reality is you go with this higher taxes, you go with this, you don't got people doing barbecues in front of the building, right? Playing with a fire hydrant. No, that was way back in the 70s and 80s. But you know what I mean? Back in the days, used to be stickball, jumping in the roofs, right? Jumping in mattress in the back, the alley, all of that stuff. But these days, things have changed, right? Things have changed, and a lot of it's been because folks tolerate it. But the window that opens wide as the gate, right, that leads to destruction. What happens is that you end up accepting stuff, right, that will destroy your community eventually because you just didn't address it. You know, it's almost like this. Now you have the migrant situation going on, right? People are like, oh, let them in, bring them in, bring them in. That's fine. Now you got folks being robbed on scooters in the Bronx and other places. Now, when it happens to somebody that you know or you see it, you're like, whoa. And then you see the news, wait a minute. These are not the typical, you know, folks that want to come and work. Yes, you do have some of that. Yes, you have people that are running from poverty, but you have people that are not too good that we don't want as neighbors, right? And that's the reality. That's the reality. The reality is that these things do happen, and speaking up against it is not popular. It's not a popular thing to do. But what it is, I don't know if any of you know about the Trojan horse, right? Story, right? They gave the city of Troy a big horse that was made of wood, but in there, right? They were fighting against another city, but the city of Troy had tall walls and that could not be penetrated. So what they did said, you know what? Let's give them a gift, and in there they put some of their top soldiers, and of course they put in this big horse, right? The story, and it's that then they came out, and then they pretty much killed the gatekeepers in the city of Troy, and then they were able to let in the soldiers. So the city of Troy was conquered because what they thought was a gift, ended up being the destruction of the city, because inside that horse, the gift that you thought you were getting, the city was getting, was actually the release of violence from within. And I think we're in a situation now. I didn't even get to say set up some video here, but many of you can go and just look at the migrant situation, right? How it is. It is absolutely crazy. Folks coming from different countries. Um, there there were some videos that I seen that were folks from the Middle East that did not look like regular Middle Eastern. These look like soldiers. So there's some concern that there may be some foreign soldiers that are already in our soil. And what happened during 9/11? Folks got here, they went to camps to train, and then they actually practiced how to fly the planes, the jetliners, right? In Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, not far, right? From New York City. And in there is that they learn how to get flight lessons to then hijack the planes and ram them right into the buildings and in DC as well. That's crazy. And one of them fell under in Pennsylvania. 4 jetliners with people, everyone died. And these were people that were in the nation. Right now we have a situation, right, that we think is a gift to get all people from other nations. The reality is it's not a gift. When things happen, it ain't going to be funny because, again, tolerance. We tolerate certain things, right? And in tolerating, you end up becoming, um, you get yourself in a place where you end up setting yourself up to fail, setting up the nation to fail, setting our neighborhoods up to fail. It's right now, right? We have situation. Finally, the folks in Chicago, the African American community in Chicago, now folks are really talking and saying, and really saying that this is wrong, right? The migrant situation. Folks that are Black and Latinos that are poor, they haven't been able to get certain services. Now people are talking up, right? Now, and that's what it takes. So finally, some people are speaking up, but there's so many that are still not speaking up. And that is just a crazy idea until it hits a neighborhood near you. And then when you do, that's kind of like, you know, put it this way, it hits everyone, right? Even those of us that work, right? Those of people that are doing very well and are able to get major tax write-offs, that's okay with me. I don't agree with government going into people taxing them like that. Um, and at a higher rate. I just don't agree with that because if I made a lot of money, I don't want to give any more than what I already have given. No, I believe give me a flat tax, keep it simple, right? But the reality is that so many expenses so many things that you have to you know um, give me a little bit of taste of water here. It was supposed to be coffee. But it's water instead. Yes. Yes, yes. My son said, "Oh, loving the life so far, not so bad." Okay, thank you, Skillet. Good, good. Yeah, and one of the things with this is, I'm. This is only the second time I'm trying to be able to flow with this naturally, but again, look, I had some technical issues because this other thing, the window just didn't work the way I wanted. But um, one of the things that I want to be able to do with this is be able to demonstrate even through video, but I'm not even going to waste time for everyone video. But in the chat, if you're actually on YouTube, you'll be able to see the links. I put links in there, folks. In the border, I put links in there about just some of the things that we're talking about here today. Um, again, I did talk about the just the Trojan horse strategy, right? Because that is a strategy. Because again, people that are coming over the border, they're being paid, right? They're being paid. They're being financed. Some of them they're giving phones. The coordination is amazing. Now, some people are bringing their resources, but and people have been caught with, yeah, that they and some of them have admitted, hey, this is how we were prepped to be able to go to the US. So what it is it's Trump was right and he's saying this is an invasion. Folks that don't like it. And look, if you listen to me, you don't like that, and you take it personal, you know what? Suck it up, buttercup. But that's the reality. You know, it is a different kind of invasion. The issue with tolerance, right? What is used? Children, women, and children, and people then feel like, oh, of course, some of them are being used as almost like mules, right? To get others, men, which is most of them are men coming through the border, more than 50%, even more. There's times that they see probably 10% women and children, 90% men coming through, and some of them look like soldiers. To be quite honest with you, all of them don't look poor, and so this is something to be careful about, right? And this is something to be quite honest with you with this whole tolerance stuff, us tolerating things like this. Well, what I say, we're gonna have a live too like this, saying people prepping, right? You know, God forbid something happens to the grid, power grid out there. There's no electricity for 5 months. How are you gonna be able to get water? How are you gonna be able to get food? You're gonna be able to. We're gonna do a live on this how to prep, you know. And some people may be like, "Oh, doomsday prepper," Uh, Frank Mars is a doomsday prep. It is what it is. The reality is there's something that pops off like what's happening out there in Ukraine. God forbid, folks are not going to be ready to know how to deal with that stuff. So, um, the other thing, so the Trojan horse strategy, because it is a strategy too. I think it's a strategy to come in and really cause havoc in this nation. Some people do want to destroy this nation. There's so many movies that if you look at, they're movies that have been intentionally put together just to kind of give you a glimpse as to what some people hope for this nation. Some people want to destroy this nation. They just want to do that because this nation falling is going to tip the balance in the world. It really, really will. This nation, even though it's had some bad history in some exploitation, oh man, you cannot even compare it to other nations. To be quite honest, with you. At least during the last 50, 75 years, if you look at it compared to other nations, a lot of nations have exploited. If you look at the history, we could do more talk about that in the future. But the reality is that right now, this migration is almost like a Trojan horse. It's to destroy from within, like the city of Troy, to destroy from inside out. Amen. So this is the other thing. So when you're doing when that happens, so in how tolerance happens, it's and you see it also in the notes when you go to YouTube. Part of it is d- what's being exploited to be able to get tolerance for people to tolerate more. It's the exploitation of compassion. So folks exploit compassion. That's pretty much what they do. They it's about the children. It's about what if this, what if that, you know, and then people it tugs at the heart of people, and in that, then you start feeling and giving back and stepping back and not really putting a limit to it, right? And so you exploit compassion. That's a form of manipulation, right? and and then that's what happens, how things become more and more normal. I don't know if any of you heard what's called the Overton window. And again, this is something I wish this thing is malfunctioning, but I wish I could, I'm gonna put some of this up in a minute. I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna have to copy and paste it and just kind of do this the right way, because it just becomes challenging, if you don't make the point so you get a visual to be able to see this. And so the issue here is that if you do not nip things in the butt, let's say right away, what ends up happening is that you end up um, letting the Overton window, in other words, that window of opportunity, that window that becomes a wide gate, that things become normalized, that they become normal when they were not normal, right? Things that were not normal, because it is a window that things finally break. Something breaks. So a gate, and in the spirit realm, something does break, which then other things get in, right? That were not permissible, right? In society, the norm in society, and things that were moral, that what you would thought, that we said, oh, this stuff is not morally right. Then it starts being normalized, right? And some things are good, but some things are can be an issue in certain societies, right? Um, and some things just in general in um in it just and no matter what in the culture, right? It's just one of those things that in general morality, when you start twisting things, like for instance killing, right? To kill, no matter what culture, right? Unless it was for self-defense, to kill a child, an innocent life, m- enslave people, right? That's all wrong in every culture. The only type of servitude that's kind of acceptable in many societies have been what they used to call indentured slavery, right? Which is a form of slavery that people say, you know what, I'll work for you for a year or for a certain amount of years, right? So I can kind of I start off a life in a new place. I've actually known people, to be quite honest with you, that that came to this nation, right? And did that, and they're doing very well, but because they couldn't get out of their situation. So they were sponsored to come in, they served, and there's a lot of history on what that looks like, right? And again, but even that became an issue, right? That people started hustling, even the rules against, uh, 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 let's say, servitude that was agreed upon, right? For people could change their whole lives, right? And that's why they're thinking migration, right? Immigration here. That would have been a great thing if it would have been the people that want it. Hey, you want it? You want to take somebody in, which guess what? They got real laws for that. You want to sponsor a family to come in and you take care of them for five, I think the law is 5 years. uh, um, to make sure that they don't tap into social services or anything like that, so it doesn't become a burden to taxpayers, you're welcome to do it. Like that's what I would do when they talk about immigration reform. That's they. I don't think there's no need to be reformed. I actually, now that I think, I know there's no need to be reformed. The reality is that there's more than enough already to it, but the problem is people are pushing it, and they're getting people to be like, yeah, 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 it's okay. No, no, you want it, take that family for 5 to 10 years, you pay for everything, and you're fully responsible. How's that? And if you don't do it, hey, your responsibility to take people back. You know, that's kind of the rules are already there. That does not need to be any more reform other than make it easier that if you're gonna do it, expedite the paperwork, where the bedrooms, where people gonna sleep, what school they're gonna go to, right? And the food that, you're gonna buy for them, and all that to make sure you're not taking advantage of people too, right? So these things are already in place. The problem is people hustle that and just use the compassion window, right? The compassion to fake people out and just get people to agree to stuff that they never agreed to. Crazy, right? So that's the Overton window. The Overton window is there was I think it's Joseph Overton. He came up with this this theory, philosophy, right, of how things become normal and how something that was rejected is a window. People just boom, things open, and you take that window of opportunity. In the church, there was actually a talk about that. Yes, yesterday, about a window of opportunity. There's such a thing, an Overton window for good things, right? But there's windows that are not for good, right? Like wide is the gate, right? Wide is the gate, right? That leads to destruction. And so, um, what I say is this, and just to start to conclude, right? Um, when we ignore certain things that we know they're morally wrong, that we know they're not right, that we know they're not right, right? When you ignore this, it's your system, your soul, your heart is telling you, and again, I was in situations where I agreed to certain things, just to be politically correct. And next thing you know, I got to myself inside of me. I was feeling, I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't, but I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to be seen as a person that didn't agree with certain things, you know? Especially when you're in those college campuses, right? It's crazy. You kind of got to go along, you know? I love, my middle son, how he got kicked out of that radio station. He had the guts. I tell you, more gutsy than I. And I was like, whoa, I was like, so proud of him. What if, there will be more folks that do that, young people. And you know what when you have children, you have to train them to stand up. They don't have to agree with everything. They don't have to agree with everything. They just don't have to. It may be unpopular. It may be unpopular, but it is what's right. It is what's right. What's right doesn't have to be popular, right? Morals should not depend on a popularity contest. It shouldn't, right? The story of bullies, right? Like I like Back to the Future, that bully named Biff, right? He was popular. Very often, jocks that are bullies in schools, they're popular, right? But everybody knows they're bullies. Everybody knows that, right? But folks don't stop them. Folks do not stop the bullies because the bullies just have a way of forcing their will on people. And it's not only the people, right, that are the sidekicks of the bully, it's also those that are on the side not saying anything, right? And the morals in this nation are changing partly because a lot of us don't say nothing. A lot of us for years haven't said anything, you know? And I don't know, you know, I don't know. I don't want to be counted as one, right? I don't want to be counted as one that was a coward all my life and was afraid to speak my mind. And you know what? I do have to say that um, there comes a time that we got to grow up, right? Because what I see is that I don't want to be a person that contributes to this nation falling to a place that I was not able to make a difference in my community, right? And guess what? Me, I'm a social worker. That is extremely unpopular to be a social worker, to actually call things for what they are, to put you in a place of uh, not being popular. Let's just put it like that. Not being popular, right? Like if I was like I follow Jordan Peters, right? Some of you that follow Jordan Peters, you know, that's in Canada. I think University of something in Canada. Folks went against him, the whole college campus, right? So my wife and I actually went to see him on tour, went downtown in Manhattan. But Jordan Peters became known as a professor, right? He's a psychologist, uh, because he refused to use gender pronouns. And boy, there were many videos where he was starting off, and somebody put a video up, and he became famous over that video. And the reality is that, you know, he saw that white was the gate, and he said, you know what, I'm going to take the narrow path. I'm going to take the narrow path. He got hell for all of that stuff. But now he's touring in many parts of the United States and probably other parts of the world, right? And he's gone against the Canadian government has been against this man. You know, some of us that are Christian in particular, just directing myself to Christians, right? Folks that are Christian, a lot of cowardly Christians. I can't believe how many Christians are cowards. And I can't believe how many Christians are really not Christian. They're fake. It's just incredible, that have a double life, complete double life, complete double life. Not speaking up, going to Pride Parade maybe every year on the side. There's no way that you could be a person that's a Christian and participate in stuff like that. There's just no way. I think it's really hard. I actually know one person, a politician, Democrat politician, that they never really went to, and the whole party turned on him, um, and um, and that's the thing. The thing is, if you're a person of faith and you participate in these are kind of not acceptable, right? Just not acceptable. And I tell you, from a person that did participate in these things, so I myself I was guilty of it. I was really guilty of it, especially being a social worker. Holy Toledo. A lot of social workers are really into that stuff. They're kind of pretty much false prophets for these causes that are immoral, Now, it's just important to be able to respect one another no matter what. It's not that you put someone down. It's definitely not that. But it's that if you have a certain position, that you're not forced and disrespected. Because see, it used to be you had to tolerate, but now it's you being pushed to be a participant and be a person that promotes these things. So anyway, I'm gonna be concluding, even though I really didn't get a chance to put these things up because of the technical things. But I think I hopefully the audio was good. A little sip here. Um, got my little Alaska mug over here. I would like to. I've never been invited a few times to Alaska. Never been there. Actually, on Facebook, Mr. Shabashin, he's been to Alaska, if I remember correctly. Yes, I would like to go one day. Um, and Mrs. Sebastian on Facebook. So just let me know what any comments you may have. But with this studio, right? This again, this program is more politics, right? But part of the studio it's got two names. The studio, two new, and I couldn't make up my mind. We're gonna conclude there, and I'm probably gonna do this type of topic one more time because I didn't get a chance really put some things up. But you know, let me just say this. And as I just put up there, what is normal can change over time, right? What is normal, what used to be 10 years ago, it's just everything has changed, fundamentally changed in this nation. You know, 20 years, a generation, things are so, so different. We're all change agents. We're either agents for um, things in the earth, in this nation, to be a difference. The Bible says you are the salt of the earth. And I did put a program together. We didn't get to put it out yet here. That um, and Jesus said, "You're the salt of the earth. If the if the salt, if you don't use it for anything, if the salt is not good, then what good is it?" And basically, you are supposed to, as believers, especially as Christian folks, you're supposed to make a difference in the community. You're supposed to. If you're not making a difference in morals, then as a person of faith, believing, you really are not doing your work. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, when the city of Sodom was being destroyed, right? Lot's wife looked back. She became a pillar of salt. And that pillar of salt really symbolizes salt that really was not good, because they got the instructions not to look back. But she actually did look back because she missed that lifestyle that she was coming out of, right? Some people are just looking back. And so they become part of the useless salt phenomenon. Let's put it like that. And I think we just got to be a difference. We just have to make a difference, right? In the lives of people, in the lives in our communities. Amen. And so, you know, just to conclude, I did start with this and jumped on that because I forgot to share that slide. But again, this studio is called Franken Studio, right? And I couldn't make up my mind whether or not to keep that name or add or this other name, right? Which is um where did it go? And the other one is called the Sala Studio, the Sala Studio, which is the living room studio. And if you look at this, right, we have a living room here, right, that we're in, and it's pretty like organic looking, right? There's times that we kind of fix it up. It's a little messy, here and there, but that's okay, because it's not enough space, right? And so, but anyway, I didn't get to put it up again. Franken Studio or the Sala Studio. In other words, the living room, la sala. Actually, it's called not the sala, la sala studio, which means the living room. Yeah, so it's kind of that. And every now and then, we'll be able to have guests, we'll video people in. We're gonna kind of go over YouTube videos, stuff like that. It's only the second time. I was supposed to go like this past Saturday. I did it, I think the previous Saturday, this Saturday I skipped it, doing it tonight. We were supposed to have some other meeting tonight, but then my wife had to go to another one. And so decided, I didn't pull it off Saturday. Let's just get it done tonight. Um, and that's it. So we're going to definitely be concluding. And I think we've been kind of doing this for, oh boy, how long have we been live here? We've been live here for about, what, 20 some odd, no, about 45 minutes or so. I'm not really 100% sure. But I'm trying to get used to this. There will be other folks that will be invited into this. And if you look at this Franken Studio, you got, definitely camera here, camera over here. And if you look at the little joystick right over there, and on top of there's a bit of a cat, they have a little joystick, old school joystick system here. That's like the old school gaming section. And then all the way in this camera. And actually, there's another camera that's looking at the scratch pad from the cats, so that when they come at it, we kind of get into topics that have some depth. We could, we just kind of scrap. They scrap over that little scratch pad there. It kind of makes it pretty interesting. But some of this, yeah, it's not. It's going to be some teaching with some structure. But it's also going to be some, if this thing picks up and people interact, people ask questions, we'll be able to, kind of answer some questions. Right now it's in its infancy. This was done like maybe 3 4 years ago. Then I stopped, and then just a bit of a perfectionist trying to get this going, trying to get this the audio to work right and stuff like that. And so uh we'll be able to kind of make it work so that people are interacting. We want to make it a little interactive this time. That it's not going to be interactive, but I like to make it interactive. So if you enjoyed this, just let me know. Put things in the chat. Again, there will be much more to come. We'll probably do this probably every other week, or sometimes every week. And then we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes from there. um yeah, but thank you guys for joining tonight. God bless everyone. And so we're gonna kind of tune out little by little, and hopefully everybody had a good time. Let me know if you enjoyed. God bless. Amen. God bless you all. Have a good night. Okay, had a good time. Have a good night. Yeah.